Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Money Mom podcast. Today, I have a very special guest who I am so excited to bring on here. She's a dear friend of mine who has helped me a lot in my life, and she's full of wisdom, full of knowledge, full of actual training. And so, Steph, welcome to the podcast. Or should I say Dr. Steph? I feel like we need to say doctor because she is a doctor. Steph, I know her as Steph. Steph, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Just call me Steph.
Yeah. I've never called you doctor, but I respect it and I think it
Thank
amazing.
you.
Can you tell us a little bit about your training, what you do in the online space, and why you are so perfect for today's episode?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to start perhaps in the middle of my journey. The peak of my journey was when I was working at NASA and I attended this workshop. And I walked into this room. Going into this room, who I was on the outside was different than who I was on the inside. I was somebody who worried every single day, but nobody would know. On the outside, I looked like I had it together, that I was probably raised like white picket fence, you know, that kind of family, that kind of mom. And the worry just caused me so much overwhelm, stress, all the things. I wanted everything to go according to plan. I tried to make sure that things went according to plan. And then I showed up at this workshop. And by the time I got to noon on day one, my mind was literally blown. Like I have the mind blown emoji coming out right now. And I was like, jaw on the floor. Everything that I know is a lie.
I've had a couple of those experiences in life. Yes.
Yes. And so I what should I say about that experience? Basically, that is the foundation of everything that I do today. At that
Mm,
point, I was already almost a doctor. I had done everything but my dissertation. And so I was very knowledgeable in psychology and all the emotions, and it still shifted everything for me. Maybe I'll sum it up like this. If somebody resonates with sometimes feeling broken, or flawed at the core. That's how I felt going in.
mm,
And what I very quickly realized is that there was a lot of things I was doing on
mm,
a daily basis that were causing the things that I thought made me broken.
mm. And what were some of those things?
Some of those, a big one, trying to control my emotions, trying to suppress them, trying to stop them. I was raised in a family where really was like not okay to be emotional. You should like not have emotions
Mm,
and just be pleasant and happy and kind of like the good girl syndrome where
mm,
follow the rules, do the right thing, prioritize other people, don't cause any problems. And
mm,
that was causing me a lot of problems.
hmm. Honestly, that's one thing that I love about you, Steph, is, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, but the second we jumped on this Zoom call today, I asked Steph, how are you doing? And
Yeah.
she said, I'm actually kind of grumpy today. And do you know, my first reaction was like, wow, that's so cool that she felt like she could show up authentically and tell me how
Mhm.
she's actually doing. And
Yeah.
and so often we want to put on these masks of I'm
Yeah.
okay, I'm smiley, I'm happy, I'm here, I'm supposed to be on your
Mhm.
podcast and I'm supposed to show up perfectly. But how much better do you feel letting somebody in? And how much better do I feel? Because I'm like, oh yeah, I know those days. I have those days too.
Yeah. Yes. I used to pretend every
Mhm.
single day. And of course, sometimes I still fall into that. But most of the time, I'm just like, F that. I'm not
Mm,
going to pretend anymore. And what if it's okay to be human and feel grumpy sometimes or feel whatever I'm going to feel? Thank you for
yeah,
saying that and acknowledging that.
yeah, yeah. So what was that conference on, if you don't mind me asking? What did they bring you in and do with you that made you have this massive breakthrough experience?
Yes, it was like, and if you want to know, come into my world.
Exactly.
Um, I, it's hard to describe, and I'll do my best.
Mm,
It was, if you've ever felt stuck, it was exactly why you felt stuck around anything and how to get unstuck.
hmm.
Heightening self-awareness, heightening the choice that you see that you have in life, and increasing self-acceptance. And it is a foundation of everything that I
Mhm.
do today. Yeah.
So this was a mindset training for NASA employees. They were trying to
Hmm.
help you. This was not a like, this was
It
more like a
was,
leadership
yeah.
training for people.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It was for, yeah, for work. Basically the belief is that if we improve the person, the organization improves, because 80% of organization issues are people issues.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's really cool. And I think that's so cool that NASA gave you that opportunity. Very cool. So then what happened after that light bulb experience? How did your work shift and change? Because I know what you do now. I know what you did then. I don't really know the bridge.
Yeah, yeah. Most people are like, wait a second. So you used to work at NASA and now you help people with anxiety? I don't get it. It turns out people are people. And so I was doing a lot of what I'm doing today at NASA.
Mm.
But essentially, what is the question that you asked, to make sure I answer the question? You said bridge the
How did
gap.
you get, yeah, how did you get
Yeah.
from working at NASA to working in your business
Okay.
now?
Okay. So in that moment, I had this download, which I don't think I knew it was a download back then, of I have to spread this to as many people as possible,
Mm.
and help moms so
Mhm.
that they raise their children in a different way than I was raised. Because the way that I was showing up was the way that I was taught to be.
Mm,
And it
mhm,
created issues where I was having reoccurring emotional breakdowns. I was struggling with anxiety. I was stressed, overwhelmed, inauthentic, pretending,
mm,
outbursts of anger, you name it. And
mhm.
so I'm like, I know I'm not the only one, and I want as many people as possible to know about this. Now, 7 years goes by. I'm just still working at NASA, because who leaves NASA? It's an incredible place to work. I loved it.
Yeah.
And I was coaching executives there, directors, different levels of leadership. And what we were talking about almost all the time was emotions and fear and people pleasing, and how to communicate effectively when conversations felt really hard. And I'm like, this is what I want to do, but for more people.
Mm,
And even though I knew that, I was terrified of leaving, because I come from a family of entrepreneurs and I've seen a lot of struggle, a lot
mm,
of struggle.
mhm,
And, foreclosures, loss of money, all kinds of things. And I made a pact with myself, I'm never going to do that. And the
mhm.
universe laughed at me, because here we are.
Yeah, there you are, and you're killing it, and you're
Oh,
killing it.
thank you. Thank you. So I had, this is going to finally answer your question. I had my second baby in March 2020, and it was a very low point for me.
Mm,
Low, low point where I actually went to my 6 week postpartum appointment and got medication, anxiety medication. And then I just picked up the prescription and I stared at it and I was like, I don't actually want to take this, but I am not me right now. Like, I don't feel good. And then I was like, you know, I know how to help myself. Like,
mm,
this is what I do for other people. I can do this. And so I did. And
mhm,
just having that experience and having another low gave me the courage finally. I think it was like 7 months later, to leave NASA.
wow, cool.
Hmm.
And now you help women all over the country
Yeah.
deal with this same thing.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
so cool. One thing that you said earlier was that you said everything on the outside looked fine, but everything on
Hmm.
the inside didn't feel fine. And
Mhm.
I know there are listeners right now that are resonating with that. Everybody at some point or another shows up. We show up as we've got it all together, especially as moms, right? We have to take the kids to school and
Mm.
see the women at school, and then we have to go run errands and look all put together, but so many people are struggling internally. And I think there's a difference between somebody who's struggling just with stress of motherhood and then that deeper anxiety, right? Like
Mhm.
these are two different things. So can you speak to the difference between those two and how they kind
Mm.
of show up?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, anxiety really is, and most people don't look at it this way, a mismanagement of other emotions.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
so, someone who resonates with feeling anxious, usually, if I ask them, well, what else are you feeling? Their emotion vocabulary is quite small.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
and, and they're like, yeah, I don't know.
Mm,
And so stress, when you look at stress, it's usually usually a very tangible thing. Like I can point to this and I feel stressed out about this. Anxiety, it's like there's this fear of this thing that might happen
mhm,
rather than this tangible thing in front of me. All the what ifs. What if this? What if that? What if this? What if that?
mhm. So anxiety is more future based, unknown,
Hmm.
fear
Hmm.
of the unknown, what the
Hmm.
future can be.
Hmm.
Okay. So then how would you say anxiety shows up in day-to-day life with women and moms specifically? That's because who listens to this podcast mostly. How if somebody were to say like this is how it looks for someone who's struggling with anxiety, what does it look
Yeah.
like?
Yeah. So, some symptoms that we can talk about, some concrete ones. Ruminating is super common. So,
Mm,
we're going over a conversation, a potential conversation, or even one that we, maybe just had over and over and over again.
mhm,
The mind is trying to solve it or make it better or learn from it. And this is where mismanagement of other emotions comes in, because when we're ruminating, we're actually rehashing something surface level rather than, when the mind is doing that, probably there's some level of, I feel embarrassed or I feel judged, and people are not diving deeper and identifying it. So overthinking is under feeling.
wow. Okay. I've never heard it explained like that.
Yeah.
But if someone is going through those cyclical, like, can't get it off their mind, it's because
Mhm.
they haven't dove deeper into
Yeah.
what's actually feeling. And I think a lot of the time it probably is judgment, right?
Yeah.
Or fear of what other people think about you
Yeah.
or how you
Yeah.
showed up. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah. So before I share more, I like to think of it as, if you imagine a pool, and then if
Mhm.
you're stuck in ruminating or overthinking, you're just, on a raft on the top of
Mm,
the water. And we really want to dive in so we can get a release. When you dive in, you're free.
mm.
You like touch the
Yeah.
bottom, then you're going to come back up.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Okay.
what are some of the ways that you help people with that, like regulating emotion? What kind of exercises?
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive into that. Oh my gosh, where do we start? And some of the very first things are pretty simple.
Mhm.
Let's look at an emotion wheel. Anytime you feel anxious, pull up something called an emotion wheel, which you can Google it. There's tons out there for everybody listening, and ask yourself, what else am I feeling? I'm flashing back to a particular client. And the first time she did this, she had the mind blown emoji because she was like, wait a second. Like this time when I say I was feeling anxious, I was feeling overwhelmed. And then another
Yes.
time that I was feeling anxious, I was feeling insecure. And another time I was feeling anxious, I was feeling embarrassed.
Wow.
Yes. And so part of this is just a direct reflection of the limited emotion vocabulary
Mhm.
coming out in like this global word of anxiety. However, we're going to address an insecurity different than we would address overwhelm.
Mhm. Yes.
And so getting granular in that way is really important because you're going to take different steps to solve it.
Wow. Well, yeah, so I when this reminds me similar to anger, that
Mhm.
anger is one of those blanket emotions as well.
Mhm.
And when we were working with Eliza, one of our common
Yeah.
friends, My husband, a lot of his emotions come out as anger. And
Mm,
she did that same thing with him, was like, okay, when you feel anger, what are you actually feeling? And
yes.
the deeper issue was he was not feeling seen
I was
and
gonna say not heard. Yep.
not feeling heard. And
Mm,
that to me was like a mind-blowing experience, because when I experience his anger, it shuts me down. But when I understand that it's because he's not feeling heard or seen or
yeah.
understood,
Yeah.
it makes so much more sense. And anyway, so it's like
Mhm.
that same thing, that a lot of times I think our masking emotions are different than the deep
Yeah.
emotions. So
Yes, yes. And
that's
just
really
a
cool.
side tangent, sometimes anger is if someone's crossed a boundary or if you've
Uh-huh.
let a boundary be crossed, and then sometimes it's a secondary emotion, but very often anger and rage fall into the category of I don't feel significant, which is feeling
Hmm.
seen, feeling like you matter, feeling heard.
Oh wow. Oh wow.
Mhm.
Okay, that's really cool. I could talk about emotions and all this stuff all day long. This is so
Almost
fascinating
same.
to me. I am good. I know you could. Um,
I'm obsessed.
okay, so we have ruminating. What else?
Yeah. Okay. So, very common one is symptoms in the body. Okay. And so,
Yeah.
not everybody experiences this, but shortness of breath,
Mhm.
heart beating faster, twist in the stomach, dizziness, maybe one or part of the body, one side or part of the body shaking. And so, those physical sensations can be super scary for people
Mhm.
because that they see that very often as a weakness, and that actually exacerbates the issue.
Yes.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
And what would you suggest somebody who struggles with that? What's one of the things that they can do?
Yeah. So if we look at, I'm going to go on a tangent, but I promise it will connect. If we look at an animal and there's a threat in front of the animal, and the animal's heart starts beating faster, and they run. So there's energy in the legs. That there's a shortness of breath. They're running. Are we going to look at that animal and say weak?
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
We would look at that and say, how strong.
Yeah.
It is the same for you. So your mind has labeled, and mine has done it, these physical sensations as a weakness, but in reality, they are actually your body strengthening to a perceived threat.
Mm, mhm.
And when you see the physical sensations as a threat, if it's a weakness, you're probably thinking of it as a threat, that worsens the sensations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, step one is to recognize this is actually my body strengthening.
Mm,
That's a good thing.
powerful. Yeah.
It's
Really
powerful.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use that analogy when in my secret podcast, when I talk about money and how people tend to go into flight or flight a lot
Mm,
when it
mm,
comes to checking their bank accounts, or, the when they look at the debt, or when they're trying to just get by at the end of the month. A lot of times we turn into this fight or flight mode when it comes to
yes.
finances, and we see a lot of these similar reactions in the body and um, experiences. And that is your body reacting to that external threat. So how can you separate the two? And I mean, maybe I need more of your help to figure out. I teach them to acknowledge the emotion first
Yeah.
and then get clear on that emotion before they address the external problem, which is the money, right? You can't show up to your money problem with that heightened
Dysregulated.
emotion. Yes. Yeah,
Not going to
you have
work.
to emotionally regulate before you can look clearly. It's like looking through goggles that have paint on them, right? Where we're not going to
Yeah.
see the problem clearly. And
Mhm.
so this is a good tangent into money and anxiety,
Yeah.
because this is something I see so often with the women that I work with, is this, and we talked about this earlier, but they term it as stress, overwhelm, shame,
Mhm.
judgment, all of
Mhm.
those types of things. But I think that that umbrella term would be anxiety, but they actually are calling it something else. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. I have a question. Are they talking about having those physical sensations, or when you say fight or flight, are you like thinking basically even the emotional reaction, the irritability, the frustration, the
Yeah, I think there is physical reactions. It's the pit in the stomach.
Okay.
that feeling, that weight on their shoulders throughout the day. I
Yeah.
think they're showing up differently for their partner. Like a lot of times that tension comes into the marriage. They
Yeah.
are more irritable with their children. Those are some of the
Yeah.
things that I see. Yeah.
One of the most important things to do when dysregulated is to regulate the body first and foremost. So, most of the time, people are trying to regulate through thoughts.
Hmm.
I'm going to make myself feel better. I'm going to think about this differently. And actually, 80% of regulation needs to happen in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the work that I do with clients and in my free class, that's step one is to reset the nervous system.
Yeah.
And there's a whole slew of benefits, which you've already mentioned a ton of the opposite of those, like overcoming all of that, that
Hmm.
irritability, the pit in the stomach, like bringing that down. When we reset the nervous system, you can think of it as, okay, we've got our parasympathetic and our sympathetic nervous system. It's putting the sympathetic is the gas and the parasympathetic is the brake, and so we're bringing them into balance essentially.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that the interesting thing, the work that I've done with the nervous system is that it's different for everybody, right?
Mm. Mhm.
Everyone regulates themselves differently. And learning how you can regulate yourself is one of the most powerful things you can do when you can acknowledge that sympathetic turning on and you
Mm.
can acknowledge the dysregulation starting to happen
Yeah.
and put a name to it and saying like, oh, I know I'm kind of getting out of balance right now. So what do I need to do? And Eliza calls it the bank account, right? Do we need to
Mm.
put more deposits in the bank account? So yeah, really being able to find out what puts you back into regulation
Mm.
is so powerful. So that way you can show up to those hard conversations, the hard experiences, because again, they're going to happen. You're going to have times where you have external things that are causing stress and anxiety, and
Mm.
being able to look at them with a better lens is so important.
Yeah, and one of the most effective things period is breath work, because the way that we can, control our heart essentially is through breath, but it's not just any kind of breath work. It's not just, oh, let me just Google, how should I be breathing? Oh, this YouTube thing says, do this box breath. Oh, this, source says, do this kind of breathing. And so, what I actually do with clients is help them identify their optimal breathing rate. And we can do that by using data from your heart, using a heart rate sensor just for one session
That's so
to
cool.
see what does your body actually need in terms of the pace of breathing to reset it.
That's super cool because it is, again, like I said earlier, it's very individualized. So that's why the work you're doing is so, so important, because you can really speak to the individual and what they're struggling with. Because everyone's story is different. Everyone's underlying emotions are different. And that, that's why coaching is so important, right? That's why we
It
need
is.
coaches to see the things that we don't see and help us through the things that we don't understand.
All of us have blind spots.
Yes,
All of
100%,
us. Yes.
100%. Well, and it's so funny to me because this is something you were talking about earlier. I find it really fascinating that NASA and most big corporations put so much money into training their executive leaders, their,
Mm.
top dogs. And I really feel strongly that a lot of times why that work that they're doing is life-changing for them.
Mhm.
And I feel like because moms who choose to stay home with their children, take themselves out of the workforce, a lot of the times they get left in the dust when
Mm.
it comes to this kinds of stuff. When they're so struggling with depression, anxiety, all of these really hard emotions, they don't have the training. They don't
Yeah.
have the corporation that's willing to pay for them to get this help. And so often we put ourselves on the back burner because we're taking care of everyone in the family. And we're just
Mhm.
silently, it's all happening inside. We're silently struggling. And the work that you do, again, is
Mm.
so important. And the work that so many of our friends do is so important because women need help too. And moms need
Yeah.
this help more than
Yeah.
anything. And how, yeah, we can get an ROI in a company when an executive shows up better,
Mhm.
but think about the change that can happen in your family, in your marriage,
Mm.
in the generational change that can
Oh,
happen
yeah.
when one woman decides to change her narrative and to change her
Mhm.
story
Mm.
and to show up better in life. Like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
that gives me
could
chills.
I couldn't agree more, and I had this moment, quick tangent, but it relates. This I did a training at NASA, and afterwards, someone scheduled an appointment with me, and I was like, "Oh, that's odd. I guess he has questions." So then he came, and we sat down, and he didn't have any questions, and he looked at me in the eyes, and he said, "You need to leave. You can have more of an impact outside the gates." And that was in 2013, maybe 2014, and I didn't leave until 2021, but I did always remember that, and that's one thing that I told myself, I will have a greater impact outside the gates because I'm going to target women who need this.
Yeah, just like you did, right? Just like
And
how it changed you.
ev yes, in every relationship, every person they touch, it changes those lives.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I said this earlier that a lot of the women that I work with feel this stress around money, that it shows up as stress. Why do you think that that is? Why do you think that money breeds this heightened sense of emotion?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that pops in my mind is for many people, most people, money equals safety.
Mm. Okay.
Would you agree?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they have created that belief.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I
Yes.
certainly did.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so the number one thing that your subconscious mind is going to be doing all the time is to protect you, to keep you safe, to make sure you stay alive. And so, if you have this core belief, money is safety, that's going to be super dysregulating if you open your bank account or you get an unexpected bill in the mail. It's like a direct cut to your safety over and over and over again, your sense of safety.
Mhm. Mhm. And it creates that spiral
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
And the thing that it the hardest that I have to help people with, and you can speak to this a little bit, is when we don't feel safe,
Hmm.
then we make decisions that
Hmm.
create more chaos
More of an issue.
and create more money problems. And then it's like this cyclical round of I can't ever get out of it because I'm constantly feeling stressed and then I'm constantly making decisions that are not helping me. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. Do you have a specific question around that? I feel like I could go in a few different directions.
Sure. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think one of the things is like, how do we get people out of that cycle? What were some of the things that you would do to help people get out of that cycle?
Yeah. Okay. So are people avoiding? Do
Yeah.
they,
Oh, some
is that
people. Yes.
some?
Yes. That
Okay.
is the
What
thing.
are some of the most common ones? Avoidance?
Avoiding it. And then another one would be to emotionally spend, right? You feel
Okay.
bad. So then you go out and spend more money. And then you feel bad that you spent the money. And then, it just creates that
Got it. Okay.
problem.
So let's talk about both of those. Um, sorry, I was taking a note so I don't forget.
You're good.
Uh, okay. So, with the avoidance, super tempting and very common actually for people who struggle with anxiety of like,
Mm,
I don't want to see this, I don't want to. And one of the things that's going to help people be the most effective, not with only with money, but in life, is to expand their tolerance to feel all of it.
mhm.
And when we avoid something, we don't expand our tolerance. We actually keep ourselves stuck. So if I avoid feeling um with money issues, maybe embarrassed.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
if I
Yeah.
avoid that like embarrassment feeling that like, oh my
I'm
gosh, this
worse
isn't
off than I
okay.
should
This
be.
I'm
Yes.
worse
Yeah.
off than I should be. All of the shame, all of that. If I avoid it, I never get better. at dealing with it, and then it controls my life because
Mhm.
you're going to feel embarrassed again. You're going to feel shame again. And then you got no better at expanding your tolerance for it. So now it controls you rather than you controlling it. And
Wow.
so that's just one shift to by avoiding something, I am choosing to make my life harder.
Mhm.
Do I want to do that? Because it's not how people are thinking about it. They're like, okay, well, that's a problem for tomorrow or for next month version of me. Or if I don't think about it, like it'll be fine, but it won't. With the emotional spending, the first place to start is actually identifying, like allowing yourself to go deeper because emotional spending is just an ineffective coping mechanism.
Yeah.
So by overspending and avoiding is an example of this too. And I can give other examples if that would be helpful. What am I avoiding feeling? Because in the moment that I'm doing it, that keeps me from feeling bad about myself.
Mhm.
What if it's okay to feel like, well, okay, made a choice that I didn't want to make. How do I want to handle this now?
Mhm.
What's coming up? What else do the
Yeah,
regulate is?
no,
Yeah.
I think that that's 100%. It really it always goes back to the regulating emotions and
Mm,
self-mastery in that regard. Being able to I mean, the first thing that I always do is we have to bring it to consciousness,
yeah.
right? So often people are just running on whatever they're used to, the habits that they've created, the experiences that they created, the emotions that they've created. And the second we step back and we say, what's happening here? We get curious about
Yeah.
how it's showing up, how we're showing up. And we say,
Mhm.
what's going on?
Mhm.
We take back power.
Yes.
Like, what do they say? Like, shame lives in the shadows.
Yes,
Right? It's the
absolutely.
same thing. Your habits are living in the shadows. Your problems that the symptoms that we're experiencing, they're all living in the shadows.
Yeah.
And so the work that you do and I do is very similar in that respect. We're literally just saying, like, take a pause, take a
Yeah.
second and recognize, and would you call it like diagnosing, even like diagnose the problem, because you can't solve a problem you can't diagnose. We have to
You
figure
can't
out.
solve a problem you won't look at.
Yes, yes, exactly.
You can
Yes.
avoid it and you won't look at it. It's always going to be there and it will grow.
Yes.
It'll
100%.
just keep growing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel that so strongly.
Mhm.
And I think when it comes to money, that's where our worlds cross so much, is because of that
Yeah.
feeling of anxiety.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Yeah.
Um, to wrap this up, do you have any words of encouragement for maybe a woman who's listening who is struggling financially, or just feeling like what you said, like everything's perfect on the outside, but the inside's not
Mhm.
matching that? Any words of encouragement for that person?
Yeah. You put meaning on everything
Mhm,
because you're human, not because anything's wrong with you. Your mind has five primary roles. One of them is to make up stories. And so just pay attention to what you're telling yourself on a regular basis. When you open that bank statement and you see what you haven't wanted to see, what happens next internally? Are you telling yourself that you're terrible at this? Are you telling yourself, why can't I get my crap together? What are you saying? You get to choose the meaning. You
mhm,
could change that story and say, okay, up to now, I've made choices that I don't feel great about. No judgment, just the facts. I don't feel great about it. And going forward, what do you want to do? Pay attention to that meeting because if you tell yourself nasty things, your emotional reaction is going to be a lot worse.
yeah,
A lot worse.
love that. Yeah. If someone resonates with what you're saying, or someone, wants to get help with this, but feels embarrassed or overwhelmed, what's one thing that they could do today, either to reach out to you? How could they find you? What's the next step?
Yeah. Best place to find me is on Instagram. My handle, I'm sure you'll put in the show notes
Mhm.
too, but it's Dr. Stephanie Lopez. So Dr. Stephanie Lopez. And then I have a free class on ditching anxiety. Watch it. I go over my 4-step process of exactly what I did and what I guide all my clients through to get out of fight or flight, ditch anxiety, and heal.
And we'll put the link for that in the show notes as well. And you have a podcast too, right?
I do. Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
your podcast name? So
Yeah. The
people can
Broken to Brave podcast.
The Broken to Brave podcast. And Stephanie hosts retreats. She works with women
Yes,
one-on-one. Don't you have a group coaching program as well?
I do. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So reach out to her if you want more help with this. Like I said, Stephanie, we've known each other what, for 2 years now?
Yeah.
About 2
Yeah.
years. Stephanie's helped me through some pretty high emotional experiences, and the calm energy that she brings to the room, like like even on this podcast with her today, like just a sense of calm I feel when
Mm.
in your presence. And
Thank you.
that's pretty magical that you can do that in a world of so much angst, so much hardness.
Mm.
You bring that calming energy, and so many people need that. And so
Thank you.
I love the work that you do, and I'm so grateful that you came on the podcast. I think we also probably need to have you in the membership. I
I
think we
would love
probably need
to.
to do a
Yeah.
masterclass. I'm sure I'm going to get members reaching out to me and saying, bring her in. We need to have a class with her. So
Oh,
we'll have
I
to
would
set
love
that up
to.
as well. That would be really
Okay.
special. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you again, Stephanie, so much.
Thank you.